Hey everyone, this is That Guy in Hutch, Jason Probst, and you're listening to That Guy in Hutch. Today I have a couple of people in my studio with me, my new studio that I'm working out of. I've got Katie Gibbons and April West. Katie is the program director for Milestone Clubhouse here in Hutchinson, and April West is a Clubhouse member. And if you don't know what the Clubhouse does, I hope you'll listen because you're about to find out quite a bit about it. But it's a really great program that's been deployed in several communities across the state. And I think as you listen to the podcast, you'll find that it really has some great benefits to the community, and particularly for anyone struggling with any mental health issues or any mental health struggles at all. So Katie, April, thanks for being here today.
It's great to be here.
It's good to be here.
So Katie, I want to start with you. Can you just tell me a little bit about the Milestone Clubhouse and the Clubhouse model? And we'll kind of go through a conversation on it, but just in a general way, tell me kind of what do we do at the Clubhouse?
All right, well, general, that's, I can talk forever about Clubhouse. Well, Milestone Clubhouse started out of a needs assessment that was done, I think, around 2015 here in Hutchinson. So they were trying to figure out how to address some gaps. And so a couple of the priorities back then they decided upon were mental health and or addressing mental illness issues and obesity. So they went through a process trying to identify a program that would be good for Hutchinson. And they stumbled across Breakthrough Club in Wichita. And so it was kind of an effort. I think there was a mental health consortium or something, I can't remember, and United Way. And so that's how it started. They felt like that was a good model to start here in Hutchinson with addressing a lot of the gaps that we have here. And just to let you know the bigger scope, there are clubhouses all over the world like ours. And Clubhouse started in the 1940s in New York City, a place called Fountain House. And it started actually before that. It started in the 1940s. It's called WANA, We Are Not Alone. And it was a group of folks who experienced mental illness, and they were trying to figure out how to support each other. So they would meet together on the steps, I think, of the library in New York City, and provide social support, education, and employment leads, that kind of thing. Back when the treatment was horrible, there wasn't really treatment for mental illness.
There was basically just institutionalization, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And they were just starting to look at medications and that kind of thing. So anyway, it progressed, and in the 1960s it became more. It became Fountain House, and more organized, more structured. And so then there are folks from all over the world, like Sweden, who are trying to identify a program that would be helpful for their folks. And so they came over and trained at Fountain House. And so it then just kind of blossomed and grew. And the basic tenets are, that members and staff are colleagues together. So they try to get away from hierarchy. People with mental illness diagnosis, they have treatment options. They connect with mental health centers and medication, but there's a need to be just people and not patients all the time. And so Clubhouse is a place for folks to come and develop relationships and get that support that they need, in addition to getting those regular mental health treatments that they require at the mental health centers or private psychiatrists or something like that. But we just kind of get together and we provide support for each other and making sure folks get connected to resources in the community. We work really closely here in Hutchinson with Horizons Mental Health Center and other organizations in town to provide those additional supports to individuals. We help get folks to doctor's appointments, get them connected with.
We help them get their medications. If they don't have medical insurance that pays for a certain medication that they need, we help them pay for the medication.
We have some resources such as that. So we're connecting with folks with, support to deal with addictions, because a lot of our folks have dual diagnosis of addictions and mental illness, because a lot of folks have been, self-medicating. They maybe don't realize that they have a mental illness for a long time, and then they become addicted to other substances. So we make sure we connect people to those resources, and it's just so. Clubhouses like ours exist all over the world, and it's very interesting because we have these set of standards that are really the Bill of Rights for members and a code of ethics for staff, and it ensures that members are getting the services that they need in order to live productive lives and to work towards recovery. And it's those same set of standards. Right now, there's 37 of them that are acted on in clubhouses all over the world. So you have different cultures. You have folks in Japan that go to clubhouses, in South America that go to clubhouses, Germany, and all over the place. And we're all addressing the same set of standards because we believe that those standards really represent what folks need in order to be empowered and to move beyond their mental illness. And those standards are agreed upon by clubhouses all over the world. So it's like a 2-year process where these standards, any clubhouse can propose a standard, and then clubhouses all over the world, members and staff in all those clubhouses come together and discuss, language issues, and does this really, address what their personal issues are in their clubhouses. And so you should be able to go in any clubhouse in the world and get the same kinds of vibe, the same sort of relationships. It's really exciting.
That is. And so to change that, like you said, is a 2-year process, but you kind of have like a governing body, but you're kind of self-governing, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the clubhouses all get together and make that decision about how do we want to change.
Yeah.
Do we need to change this, and if so, how?
Right, and different clubhouses have representatives on. There's called the faculty of the Clubhouse International, and I used to be on the faculty of the Clubhouse International. So there would be a member from another clubhouse somewhere in the world, with a staff from another place in the world, and they would meet and they would evaluate this clubhouse somewhere in the world to see if they adhere to the clubhouse standards.
Okay.
And so it really is a very unique kind of an organization.
So if you go to a clubhouse, what can you I've been in there and I've seen, you've got the tables and chairs set up and there's a lot of activity going on. There's a kitchen, there's a kind of a computer stations and things like that. But what can someone find, or what can they expect if they go to a clubhouse?
April, you want to touch on some of that?
What they can find if they go to the clubhouse, they can find people who are just like them, who want to communicate with them. And they can also, like me, I'm the activities director, so I come up with all the different activities that we do during every month. And basically, they can just have a fun time. And if they wanted to get on the computer, during free time, during social time, they can go on the computer, do what they want. We have arts and crafts that they can do if they want to color a picture. Just different things.
So April's really involved in our social program, so she helps us figure out some activities to do outside the clubhouse and inside the clubhouse for fun. But when you come into the clubhouse, we also, it's a group of folks that we have meetings. Some of our folks don't like meetings too much, right?
They're right.
I don't like meetings very much either.
But
the meetings, they're sometimes boring.
Well, that's April, but you'll also talk to some people that really find them quite exciting, because what we do is it's important to meet because you want to empower everybody to be able to make decisions. So decisions aren't just made by staff of the clubhouse; it's members and staff together. And so in order for everybody to be able to have a say in the decisions that are being made, you have to meet about things that are happening. So we have unit meetings where we talk about what's going on out in the community, what decisions do we need to make as a clubhouse. We talk about funding, our grant writing. So if we have a grant that we're wanting to write, we bring that back to the community, the clubhouse community, and we talk about what are our needs, how much is it going to cost, can we really afford this now? And we make priorities that way. We make decisions on where we're going to go each month. April will come up with some ideas, and everybody else will come up with ideas, and then we decide what we're going to do for fun. Like, are we going to go to Wichita, go to the zoo? Are we going to go to Coronado Heights over by Lindsborg?
Which is what we did this month. We went to Coronado Heights and we saw that big castle and went on a hike around the building.
Yeah, it was fun. But we also decide on, like, what needs to be done that day. So we're all taking care of everything. So one of my first questions that was given to me when I first started 30-some years ago was, how do you feel about cleaning toilets? And I'm like, I like a clean toilet. So we clean toilets together. But we also make lunch together, but of course wash hands first. But we make lunch together. We go shopping together. We do our attendance together. We have computers where we track our attendance and outreach. So outreach is a really big part of our clubhouse. We want to make sure that folks aren't isolating in the community. So if we haven't seen them for a couple of days, we'll call them up and just say, hey, what's going on? Is there anything that we can do to help you? We'll stop by their place if they're needing some help, if they can't get out, if they've need a meal or something, we'll take them a meal, just anything that individual might need. So when you go into the clubhouse, first of all, you'll see our dining room, because that's kind of where we all gather and discuss stuff, and we have our meetings there. And then you venture back and you'll see different areas of the clubhouse where we have computers set up where members can do, look at what's going on in the state of Kansas that we maybe want to go take a trip to, or what's happening in the community where we want to be a part of the community. Third Thursday is what's going on there. We contact other clubhouses all over the world too, to just kind of find out what they're doing in their clubhouses to try and strengthen our own clubhouse. We go to presentations together. We're doing the Consumer Recovery Conference right now. We're going to be sending folks to an international conference in Baltimore, Maryland this fall, so we can meet other people from all over the world, folks who live with mental illnesses and those staff who work with them. So it's just a really great networking opportunity. When we go to these places, we go to trainings all the time. And then we also focus on wellness. So one of our big pushes is to really help people to learn how to eat healthy and exercise. And so we've got some funding through Cargill to help with that, and United Way. Hutchinson Community Foundation has helped provide support for us to start our employment program. So we help people get jobs in the community, and we're working with employers to identify positions in the community that our members can have work experiences in the community, and we can help them find longer-term employment. So just building relationships with other folks in the community is also a big thing. And our members also love doing advocacy in Topeka. Well,
I know you all came to Topeka a couple of times this year. Which I think is so important to make sure that people that are in the field of making policy know who the policy's for and know how it affects people. Well, as you were talking about that, it made me think that it seems like part of what the goal is to create a sort of community, right? Just a supportive community of people who share these experiences, people who understand these experiences. Can you talk a little bit about, and I'm thinking too about what you said earlier about the early days of Clubhouse, and it's that, begins with the idea of, not being alone. Can you talk about the importance of that a little bit? What do we see in people who struggle with, mental health concerns? It's easy for them to become isolated, right? Or to be kind of separate from the community at large. Is that an accurate thought?
Well,
without something like a clubhouse kind of helps.
Without a clubhouse, that would be, without Milestone Clubhouse, people would be isolated. They want to be able to get out and get around and get out in the community. But since we have Milestone Clubhouse, we're giving people a chance, to get out and help out.
And we have a lot of fun. We joke around a lot. We do lots of practical jokes on each other. It's great. So, back in the day, the only option was long-term institutionalization. So I have family members who have been institutionalized, and I had a brother that was institutionalized a couple of different times in the 80s, and I would go visit him, and there were people that were there, Osawatomie Topeka State Hospital at that point in time, that had been there for years and years, 20, 30 years. And now they really try not to do that, with community integration and that kind of thing. But that's where we were at. Folks were spending their whole lives in institutions. Their families were worried about them being on their own. The medications weren't good enough, and so that's where they were at. So sometimes you'll hear people say, "Well, we didn't have this problem with mental illness back when I was younger." Well, it's because they were all in institutions, or
you just didn't see it.
We didn't see it, and they weren't getting the treatment they needed. So now with medications and the support, in the environment, Horizons has some great programs. Their ACT program is great. They got some great folks over there. So we work really closely with them on trying to make sure that folks can stay out in the community. And if they get the treatment they needed, they can get jobs. They can be taxpayers. They can take better care of their kids or whatever, and they aren't isolated, and they don't become, suicidal behavior is really focused on now. And you hear a lot of this stuff about, the gun issue and is it mental illness or not? But most folks with mental illness are likely to be victims of crime rather than perpetrators of crime, and that's really important for folks to know. So many of our folks are just isolated in the community, in their own homes, or maybe homeless, and they're invisible. And we're talking about people who have severe mental illnesses like major depression disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, those kinds of things. So that's what our focus is. That's what our mission is, to touch those folks' lives and help the families out. I know families, and I get this. Parents and siblings, they're so worried about their loved ones. Maybe they've had a problem with folks, their loved ones being homeless or just staying inside and not wanting to go anywhere, fearful of everything around them. It's just, people can have better lives. We can have more higher quality of lives. We can get out in the community and share our experiences, and have fun and be silly and joke around, but also have jobs and be able to have our own homes and be able to get a car and be able to take trips like anybody else, right, April?
Exactly.
Right.
That's true.
Right. So and that's where I think we need to focus on more, is just getting people normalizing all this, because we all have issues. All of us get depressed once in a while, but can you imagine not ever being able to get out of that depression, being so down that you just can't see a way out? And
there are some people who do that.
Yeah. And that's where we get scared about, the suicide rates and people
Exactly.
acting out. I just think it's interesting that we have all these, when they first started developing these phones that, I'm not much of a techie person, but, they're talking to somebody in their phone, they have it on their ear. And I remember the first time, years ago, I was at a place trying to get a video. And this person started talking, and I thought they were talking to me, so I started answering, and they looked at me like funny, and then I realized they had a thing in their ear.
Like an earpiece.
Yeah, they were talking on the phone. And I'm thinking, what a great normalizing experience, because now when people with schizophrenia are out and they're talking to their voices, they're talking to somebody that's not there, it's kind of, now our society is more used to that.
It's
people
like seeing somebody talking into an airbud.
Yeah, so I
right?
thought, how cool is that? So, in a lot of ways, it's some of these behaviors are kind of more accepted because you're used to folks talking to nobody.
Yeah.
But we just need to be more aware that it's not mental illness. The symptoms kind of swing back and forth. So somebody can do really, really well for a while, and then they need that support. And one thing that's lovely about the Clubhouse is, and that's how we really complement the traditional mental health centers, is because folks, when they're a member for life. It's like being involved in a church. You know, you're a church member. You can be a member and go to church and provide supports to other people, and you can also go in times that you really need that support. Clubhouse is the same way, and you don't have to wait for an appointment. You know, if you're feeling down and out and you're feeling like a crisis is coming on, you can just come to the Clubhouse and get some support. You don't have to make an appointment, which you might not be able to see somebody in a month or 2 months. You know, you don't have to wait that long. You also don't graduate out of the Clubhouse, you know. So the traditional mental health system is so crisis focused right now because that's how the funding operates. There's not much preventative stuff going on, and we all are starting to talk more and more about the need for more preventative care. Clubhouse is a community that provides support, and we're there anytime somebody needs to come in and get some help, or if they want to give back, they want to come in and make a meal for everybody else, come on in and show us what your talents are, you know. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, that's fascinating. So it really is a preventative thing. It's just a baseline. There's a place to go, and members know that, right? They might not go for several days or a week or whatever, but if they hit a place again and they're starting to feel like a little restless or whatever, or down or whatever the case may be, they know they can go there. And that probably, I'm thinking that probably prevents a lot of crises in members, doesn't it?
Yeah, wouldn't you think so?
Yeah,
April?
it does.
Well, April, one question I had for you is, you're down at the Clubhouse quite a bit, I think. When I've been there, you're
I'm
there.
down there almost every day.
Okay, so before the Clubhouse was around, I mean, what did life look like for you? How did you spend your days before Clubhouse?
Well, for me, before Clubhouse came around, I used to just walk around town and just, I never had anything much to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just be bored in the house, bored out of my mind. I would just watch TV all the time, and ever since Milestone Clubhouse came around, I've had something to do. It's a good thing to get on the computer and just look up these different places that I can think of to go, for our activities.
And that's your job now, is to look up and think about what kind of fun things. Tell me, I know you've talked about Coronado Heights, but what are some other places that you've looked at and decided that people should go see?
I've looked up Exploration Place, which is in Wichita.
Mm-hmm.
Sedgwick County Zoo. The National Museum of National Treasures.
Okay.
And, well, I looked up some places in Topeka and Salina,
Mm-hmm.
like the Rolling Hills Zoo that they have there. Abilene.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Where our...
Eisenhower.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of our presidents, where he is. And, the Kansas State Fair.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just a fun job for me.
Yeah, that would be fun. And it does sound like you do get to take quite a few, nice field trips and nice places to go explore and see what's going on, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff in the city too. We go to coffee places, go bowling, just whatever members want to do. So our social program is, you want to tell them how often we meet for social?
Well, we do it every week on Thursday, and we do an out-of-town one not every Saturday, but one Saturday every month. We do one out of town. So, like, if we want to go to Wichita, do something in Wichita, or do something in another city, we go there for just one Saturday out of the month.
Yeah, last Saturday we went to the River Festival.
Yes, we went to Riverfest.
You all went and saw Willie Nelson, right?
Yes, we did.
Yes,
we did.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you how. I saw the Facebook post of that, and I wondered how it looked like it was a lot of fun.
It was. The only thing that was wrong was Willie Nelson. Even though he sometimes sang some of his songs, he spoke them sometimes too during the concert.
Well, he's always kind of done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of
That's good,
a talking singer kind of
Yeah.
thing, right?
It was a blast. We don't have too many of those late night ones, but that was one.
Yeah.
We had folks that it was on their bucket list to see Willie Nelson. They'd never seen him before.
Yeah, because he's a legend and he's 89 years old.
Yeah.
So
So if you're going to see him, it needs to happen probably pretty
Yeah.
soon.
right,
Yeah.
right. Anybody out there, if you want to see Willie Nelson, do it soon.
But do you think it seems like because you have a group of people to go with and you have somebody to help with transportation, if you didn't have Clubhouse, this would probably be a fairly hard thing to pull off, right?
Right.
It probably, it helps having people that will support you in trying to do these bucket lists.
Yes, exactly.
Items, yeah.
And it was a big
It does
crowd
help.
too. It was a big crowd, so it was kind of nice that. I know I'm thankful that April's here with me today because I get a little nervous about these things, but we can just support each other and it's a lot of fun. We're also open every major
Yeah.
holiday because a lot of folks don't have some place to go on a holiday, or maybe they want to come and see their Milestone family, but then they'll go see their other family, part of the day. Like a lot of us have like several houses to touch base at. So one of the places some people drop by is the Milestone Clubhouse to have a Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving dinner. We get together for the 4th of July, and we watched the fireworks together last year. It was
That's
Nice.
another thing. People at Milestone Clubhouse, we feel like family.
yeah.
We don't leave anybody out. We welcome everybody that wants to come. We are a family.
And that's important. That's,
Yes.
that's for a lot of people, I think that's probably a missing element in their lives, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really can't be understated, that feeling of family and community, and that you have a group of people that are there together, I guess, with you, right? You talked a little bit about resources, and I know that you have some staff that yourself, and I think you have at least one other person working with you that kind of can help figure out like job resources or things like. Can you talk a little bit about some of that programming a little bit?
Yeah, so we're just kind of starting that part of our program. So, and thank you, Hutchinson Community Foundation. You're amazing to help us get it on that track. But yeah, we just hired somebody to help us with employment development. So we've also worked, we also have communications with Pillar. They're a very, established employment program in town. So our focus is really working with individuals who have severe mental illnesses. And so I know there's some other folks around that work with a variety of folks with challenges, but our focus is those individuals. So what we're trying to do is identify employers out in the community. We actually work with Mark over at Toy Depot, and April got us that connection. So Mark is great. We go over to his place or his street just once every other week, and we sweep up the sidewalk and right next to the curb and pick up some trash, and he appreciates it, and we like being able to contribute back to the community. What we're looking for is part-time work, 12 hours to 12 to 20 hour week jobs, but we could take a full-time job and split that in half. And so our goal is that what we would do is identify an entry-level position out in the community, and then staff would learn that job, and then we would train a member on that job. So whoever's interested in that job would sign up for it. Our parent organization is Breakthrough in Wichita, and like I said earlier, I've worked with in this field for over 30 years, and I used to be the employment person there. We've been working with Botanica since 1991. That was one of the first jobs I developed over there. And so every year we have folks that sign up for that job, members that sign up and they want to do that job, and it's working, out in the garden area. It's lovely if you're an outdoors person. And so they work that job for 6 to 9 months, and then we pick another member from the clubhouse to work that job. And the folks get paid the going rate out in the community. So if your typical wage for that position is $8 an hour, that's where our members get paid. The member works that job until, we train that person on the job. So the employer trains us once, and then we train all further staff and all further members.
Okay.
And then if that person is ever sick, has the flu or anything like that, or has a doctor's appointment they can't go in, we fill in for free to the employer. And
Okay.
that's because one of the biggest challenges for employment for our population is turnover and just this, so transitional employment really helps people get back on track. Sometimes people have never worked before. Maybe they started experiencing symptoms in their teens and never established a work history.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they worked up until they're 30, and then started having symptoms. And so then they're trying to reestablish those work habits. So that's what transitional employment is for. And so, we would love the opportunity to speak with any employers out there that would like this. It's a real benefit to the employer. There are also tax credits available working with our population, many of them. And again, once you train somebody, you always have a guarantee that somebody's going to be on the job. I know a lot of folks are out there are so frustrated because people are quitting jobs right and left, or you can't find somebody to fill in a position. What were your answers? So
yeah, I was going to say, with all the talk about workforce and trying to find people to take jobs, I would think that this, particularly for an employer, would be a pretty nice offer, a pretty good deal, knowing that you're going to have somebody there to do the job all the time.
Right.
Yeah. So that's part of a process of kind of getting members, like you said, who maybe don't have a work history or don't have a lot of context about employment, to kind of get into the routine of what it means to do a job and work and do it consistently and things. So, and that's designed to kind of create building blocks, right? To move members to, maybe full employment someday. Is that kind of the goal of that?
Yeah, eventually to go off benefits and have insurance through the company or whatever. The thing about mental illness is it's not a linear experience.
Yeah.
So, you're going to have, there are, just like all the rest of us, there are times when we're doing great, and there are times when things happen in our lives that we might get depressed. Our mood could change depending on, maybe what you have for, I don't know. Anyway, but so members can work a TE job, and then they might want to have their own job, and we can help them with that. And then maybe they're down the line, they might get sick again, and they might need that level of support that TE provides. So transitional employment is always going to be available to them. And I know there's another program in town that uses the term transitional employment. Clubhouses have been using this term since the 1960s. So it essentially, you're transitioning people into something, and but that's what transitional employment is for the Clubhouse. It's available for those folks who need that level of support, whether they've done it before and haven't done it, or maybe they're working independently and then they really feel like they need that level of support. So.
Yeah. But this touched on something it's interesting that I want to try to explore a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about culturally the way we treat mental health and physical health differently? I'd say you talked about mental health not being linear, but we kind of recognize that culturally with other chronic conditions, right?
Yeah.
If I have a chronic health condition, diabetes or any other number of chronic conditions that are always going to be present, we know that, and we recognize this in the physical world, right? We say we know that somebody has this physical ailment. It's a chronic condition. It can be managed with medication. Sometimes that doesn't work, and we tend to make allowances for that. We build, PTO. We have an ADA program. All these things like that. Why is that? Why is that same fundamental element handled so differently in the world of mental health, do you think?
I don't really know. I don't understand it myself, because you don't refer to somebody with cancer as, I'm a cancer.
Yeah.
But so many people say, I'm a schizophrenic, or you're a schizophrenic, or you're a bipolar, or you're a depressive. And it's like folks, their identity is lost in their diagnosis. And I don't understand. I guess I don't really understand it, because sometimes it's an invisible thing. I think our norms in society expect us to act certain ways, And if you do something that's outside of the norm, then folks are shocked and uncomfortable. But I also, I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that. I don't understand it myself, because, I mean, that's what Clubhouse is all about. It's about fighting the stigma of that. I mean, there's the parity issue as far as medications. I mean, that's an ongoing conversation. I know a while back they were talking about how, Medicaid will pay for certain medications, but they won't pay for the good, the newer stuff. They want them to start at one point to see if that works, and then
step them up.
It's the step program. The step program. And I tell you, when my brother was in the 80s, when he was taking medicine, I mean, this was a guy that used to walk all over the place, really thin, had a funny sense of humor. And he was in the hospital, and there are folks still using Thorazine and some of these other medications, and they work for them. But with my brother, he became bloated. He would sit there and he would wave his head back and forth, and he would drool. And he didn't start smoking until he was institutionalized, because there was nothing else for him to do. And he wasn't able to do anything. I mean, this is what medications back then, the lower step medications did for him. And so it's just a constant battle to try and have that equity, in treatment and what's available to folks and how folks are treated. But you know what? If you really get to talking with everybody, almost everybody I've ever talked to has somebody in their family that has a mental illness, a severe mental illness. And I've visited with many people in the community over the last 8 months, or however. I started with Milestone a year ago, July. I've talked with all kinds of folks in this community, leaders of our community, and you get to talking with them. After an hour, they'll say, yeah, my aunt had a mental illness, or my brother died of suicide. So these issues, these folks are out there, but we just don't talk about it.
Well, Katie, there is another mental illness out there that is really bad these days. That's autism.
Mm-hmm.
Well, autism, but I also want to clarify, because I think in this community we think, that's what I've heard a lot, April. I'm sorry, I'm going to counter you on that one.
Okay.
Because autism is not a severe mental illness. So that's not really the focus of our program. Our focus is on severe mental illnesses.
Well, we do have some people who have autism.
We have folks that have both.
In our program.
Right, but our focus is on those that have severe depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, those kinds of things. We have a couple other programs here in the community that are amazing: disability support services and tech. They work with a lot of folks who have developmental disabilities and cognitive disabilities, and we just felt like there was something missing. There was a gap here in this community for those who have severe mental illnesses, and so that's what we're trying to address.
Well, because before Clubhouse, there really wasn't anything in place for, people with severe mental illness wouldn't necessarily qualify for the services that are available for developmental disability or cognitive issues, right?
Well, and some of our folks were getting services there, and some of them still get services at those other places. But again, we just want to focus on that one piece. And again, Horizons Mental Health, they have a lot of great groups and other activities, and a lot of our members go there, and then they also come to the Clubhouse. But again, funding issues, make it difficult for people to get ongoing, regular, daily kind of supports, and so that's why Horizons works with us really closely to provide that extra support that folks might need.
Yeah, because some of the programming that's traditionally been in place is reactive, right?
Yeah.
To, like you said, it's crisis focused.
Yeah. And they don't like that. They don't like that they have to just deal with the crisis, but they're understaffed, and the funding is not there to provide other services.
But the thing about being crisis focused is you never know when that's going to happen either. It almost creates another crisis, because if you don't have the staffing and there's a uptick and crisis among people with mental illness, then you now have to deal with that, and you may not have the capacity to deal with that as a reactive center. But it's you talked about that being proactive, and I know that I'll put you on the spot. I know there's a brochure that we worked on a little bit.
Yes, you did. You
and
helped us with that one.
It had some statistics, but there are some pretty remarkable statistics about the benefits of the Clubhouse model in terms of reducing overall medical care cost and healthcare cost for people with mental illness, and often to the general public, who ends up paying for some, or hospitals absorb this in uncompensated care a lot of times. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Right. Well, again, I'm not so good with the numbers anymore in my head. I don't remember that. But if you go to Clubhouse International, you can go online and look up Clubhouse International, and that has information about clubhouses from all over the world. It has a lot of articles, a lot of information. Clubhouse is a SAMHSA best practice. They've been recognized by SAMHSA. But there's, from what the research has shown, fewer hospitalizations and less interaction with law enforcement if folks are connected with a clubhouse. And it's because of those supports that they can receive and the connections we have with resources in the community. So.
And that's something we haven't really talked about much. That is a real concern, right? If somebody is having an episode or a mental health crisis, and things are not going well, that interaction with law enforcement may not always go very well.
Right, and there's a great organization here that started. I mean, Hutchinson's got a lot of good stuff. I love this place. A lot of amazing folks, a lot of amazing things happening. So there's a Stepping Up Council, and Lisa Gleason from United Way is heading that up right now. But it's a great group of folks that are engaging mental health support folks in the community and law enforcement and judges to talk about the needs of the community and to help try to get folks redirected out of the justice system into treatment and supports. So I encourage you to look them up and get more information about that. I've attended a couple of meetings and I'm looking forward to being more involved with them.
Yeah, because that's an important thing. Like that, the criminal justice system isn't really. We've unfortunately historically ran people with severe mental illness through the criminal justice system, but that doesn't produce the best outcomes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we just got this thing, I guess, in the state, and our clubhouse did a lot of advocacy on this, the 988 number. So now it's going to be easier to call a crisis number instead of, taking up the time to call 911. Plus, hopefully that'll engage more folks in mental health field to address crisis situations instead of sending police officers. So it'll decrease the amount of time that police officers need to react to those kinds of calls, and plus it'll get folks the services they need right away, instead of and they'll avoid going to jail and then being diagnosed, because sometimes when people are in jail they don't get the medications that they really need initially, and it's been a long road, but I think there's been some really good stuff happening in Hutchinson to try to address that issue, but we've got a long way to go yet. Yeah.
And it is. I do think we have some good things happening here, but largely because there's a number of people that, like you said, the Stepping Up Council recognized. And I was involved in one of those early meetings, and it was a room full of people who, from a broad spectrum of fields, from law enforcement to the medical community to business people, who recognized that this was something that we wanted to take a different look at this and take a different approach, instead of just arresting people and putting them in jail and then sending them back on the street with no resources and then running through that cycle over and over and over again.
Right.
So we've talked a lot about the Clubhouse model and Milestone Clubhouse today, but I always like to end with asking people just if you can maybe explain one thing that you wish people knew about Clubhouse that they might not know, that you kind of wish that they would understand. Well,
Clubhouse, some people think of it as, because the name, they think of it as a place where folks come and just kind of hang out, and they're there, and then they come back the next day, and then they, but we're a place where folks can come together and provide support for each other. But our main intention is to really connect people to the greater community outside of our walls. get them connected with other community folks and employment and education and get housing, and just to realize their dreams and not just have a place to go just to sit all day long. So that's one really big thing. We're a place for folks to start, living their lives.
Yeah, start their lives in a place to explore and jump off from.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also they can feel like it's a safe environment to go to. For when they're feeling down or depressed, they can talk to someone about how they're feeling, about their emotions, and just feel safe and out of danger.
And you feel pretty safe at the Clubhouse,
yes,
right?
And I feel pretty safe myself there.
Because you have a lot of support and a lot of staff that's helping you and everything.
Exactly. That's how I feel. I'm sure other people would feel that same way too.
Well, thank you both for coming on today and sharing your story and talking a little bit about the Milestone Clubhouse. And you, do you want to give the address again and the phone number and any other
sure.
information? And if people want to drop by, they can just drop in, right?
Right. We might be having a meeting and ask you to come back in about 15 minutes. But we're open 8 to 4 every day, 206 North Main Street here in Hutchinson. And our phone number is 620-888-5003.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on today and sharing a little bit about one of a really great asset that we have in Hutchinson. I'm glad that you all are doing this work in the community.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'd like to thank a few of the people who've helped make that podcast in Hutch possible. My son Mitchell Probst wrote and recorded the music for the show. Jenny Brigette put together some great graphics and promotional art. And Chris Acker helps overcome my mistakes to produce a great sounding product every episode. That podcast in Hutch is made possible through a collaboration between the Hutchinson Arts and Culture Collective and Salt City Sound. They're working to bring resources and infrastructure to support art, music, and storytelling in our community. If you have an idea for your own podcast, reach out to them at podcasts@saltcitysound.net. If you enjoy that podcast in Hutch, be sure to subscribe and share it with all your friends. You can also help support this production by subscribing to thatguyinhutch.substack.com or by emailing me at thatguyinhutch@gmail.com to learn about sponsorship opportunities. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next week.
A Salt City Sound production.